welcome Wrench Army members. Today I snuck in a live stream because I really want to finish up this control panel for next week, and this is for our Franken lightning detector. I'm Rachel DeBarros, and thanks for watching Gearhead Diva. And of course we have Dave Beck already here, so he's already announcing he's done eating, so he's ready to build. Me too. I got the calories going. Let's burn them off now. So I'm going to give you a quick kind of tour of what I finished, especially if some of you guys missed the original stream on Wednesday where we kind of like started this whole thing, made a couple placement decisions. Frozen Mustache is here. I am here waiting. Yes. So hopefully you got a little bit something to eat, you know, because we are going to like wrap this up. That way we can get it on the wall and tested for Monday's big reveal. And I'm hoping that no more gremlins happen, no more power outages, no more like big winds that then cause power outages, because I've already lost half an LED strip and one of my favorite wall adapters, and it's the one where you can just toggle different voltages. It is so convenient for testing things, you know. So he's gone, and I have his little buddy on order, so we should be back in business sometime this week. But anyways, on with the tour. And this is what I have going on so far. And let me just kind of forgot to clean things up before getting started. I'm hoping some of you can relate. You know, as you build a project, your table just keeps getting more and more. Let me move this guy out of the way as well. I want to show you this in a bit. I am like proud of my windings, and I totally used your guys' suggestions. And by use, I mean completely stole your guys' suggestion. So here's the control panel that we have. And for last stream, I went ahead and stained this for us. So the box was all like nicely stained, ready to go. And if we flip it over, we can see the fine woodworking construction. Maybe not so much, but we have our pocket hole screws and pocket hole screws up here holding this box together along with some wood glue. And it's rocking back and forth because I have like this black panel here is a bit raised. But the nice thing with this is that the box turned out square. It lays nice and flat, which means it's going to lay flat against the wall. And then you might be wondering what this is. Well, this is 1/4-inch plywood, and we do have that big old bubbler, which is pretty lightweight except for some of those iron piping parts. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to add another common board reinforcement panel where we're going to drill through this today and anchor our bubbler. That way it's got something more solid to anchor onto rather than the 1/4 plywood. I mean, could have we totally gotten away with this and just putting it on the 1/4 plywood? Probably, but you know how it is. It'll start to warp, and who knows what else we're going to be attaching to this thing. So I figured, you know what, better safe than sorry, and attach a little bit of support, and perhaps with our new and improved view here, you can see it that much better, and I can use it to kind of hide my mess back there. Nothing to see back there. So I think this panel turned out pretty well, and last time we got through base coating this portion all browns. So this is already done, and I went ahead and started experimenting with this other side and taking the bronze, streaking on some gold and a little bit of black to create, a bit of corrosion, perhaps a bit of dirt going on, burnt elements, perhaps from some bad, electrical. And I added these thumbtacks around to create a riveted look. Now, decision time, and I'm going to, put this to you guys early so you can start deciding and we can think of what to do. The rivets, I went ahead and sanded down their little noggin so they're not so shiny. They kind of look shiny, when I look at them on camera, but in real life they look pretty dull, which is nice. So they look old like the panel. But should we age them a little bit more, maybe adding some brown? We can even use a black acrylic wash maybe, just to kind of tap on the heads to just dirty them up a bit. Maybe there's corrosion forming around a few of them. I'm gonna leave that up to you guys. Maybe you like this clean look and we can leave the clean look, or you want some some more aging. So your decision, and I will follow suit. So I guess the first thing we should do is kind of just finish this one side, and you'll see, how I accomplish this look with this side here as an example. And on this black panel here, we'll be mounting our switch, our knife switch like that, and also our rocker switch. So these are going to look nice. I have a little room down here, perhaps to put labels like power and fog. I'm trying to find stencils tiny enough where I can use gold lettering or silver lettering to do that. I also have a bit of metal panel left over. So perhaps, I don't know, maybe I can cut some squares out of this and use it as labels. So I thought, adding some real metal to my fake metal might be kind of cool. So Frozen Mustache is already saying more aging. That would look awesome. And Dave Beck saying Riveter Rosie. Yeah, it's the fake one. It's like when you can't afford Riveter Rosie, you get me where you do the thumbtacks, But heck, if it's fooling people, then I'm happy with it, right? So I do have some real rivets, but thumbtacks for these do just as well. I think it ended up looking pretty good. Now, anytime you're working with larger pieces of faux metal, I like to use upholstery tacks. And those come in so many more different styles. You can get like hammered metal, you can get very ornate or Baroque styles. So depending on what you're doing. But because our metal strips here are pretty thin, the thumbtacks actually ended up like looking like a good size, like they fit in their real rivets for this. So it all worked out. And these thumbtacks came from this little box. I ordered a package of 600 thumbtacks. And this was for our floating corner shelves project we did, I believe it was last year. It's been quite some time. And we made steampunk faux metal panel floating corner shelves. And they ended up looking very, very realistic. And we did age a couple of them. And then on other panels, they were left more clean. So we got a little bit of a variety. Dave Beck is saying, let's transform those rivets to look old and rusty. All right, so it's kind of unanimous. So we're going to do that. So let me get this side done, and then we can like rustify all of them at the same time. So let me give you guys a better view. Is there any way to back you out? Whoop, wrong way. Any more? No. So perhaps I will work in this type of orientation. Just like that. So the whole thing fits. And the first thing I'm going to do is I have my trusty Bob Ross paint palette. Perhaps not as big, but that's probably a good thing because I don't have much room on this table. So, we're going to use a little conservative one. And I'm going to grab my gold paint. Now, I went ahead and base coated, I'm using it as a verb, I base coated, to base coat, this entire thing, all these strips with bronze first. Let it dry, and then I went ahead and did all this stuff earlier today. And I'm just going to repeat on this side. So now that it's base coated bronze, we're going to add some gold detailing because we're pretending that they're brassy gold, type of straps. Now, of course, had we thought of all these details ahead of time, you'd want to stain the box separately and then, of course, paint these and spray paint them outside separately and then put it together. But in the interest of not having you guys watch a whole bunch of glue dry and paint dry, I kind of assembled everything and then we're painting it all at the same time using some painter's tape to hopefully protect our nice stained surface. So in doing the gold, I basically think about how metal is. We have a lot of scratches. If you ever look at metal real close, it's usually got these very microscopic striations, scratches going across. So you can be kind of haphazard how you do this. But usually I like to start with just picking a direction and kind of sticking with it. Now I'm using kind of dry brushing, but a little bit heavier than I would say traditional dry brushing because this is a metallic. Metallics tend to be a little bit thinner, meaning that they have less pigmentation per glob of paint, per drop of paint. I guess we'll use that type of measurement than solid colors do. So you can kind of get away with loading your brush a little bit more. And I'm just kind of doing that, and it kind of creates like the natural scratches, and it really comes to life when we do our second coat of gold and then add our black touches. So I ended up painting this black, base coating it black, and using just some gold streaks across to make it look like it had been either painted gold at some point or a gold panel painted black. And the black is beginning to wear away at the edges. Now, I think it's kind of barely visible. I think we can add a little bit more gold touches and gold aging there. It'll make it a little more believable. But I kind of started with that and see what you guys think, where we want to go there. Maybe just leave it as is or take it all the way. So this is kind of our first coat here. And anytime I start this first coat of gold, it always reminds me of like Baroque wood projects, like Baroque wood trim that was once painted gold, but then it's starting to wear. So it doesn't quite look like metal to me always. And then this is the point where I always want to give up and say, all right, let's trash it. Let's start something else. And that's kind of what I did when I did this black panel. Normally I will use a black base coat anytime I do metallic work. But this time I just went straight to the bronze. And I kind of didn't like the look. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw everything bronze, it just looked like a picture frame. It didn't really look metal at all, even though it was bronze color. So I started adding gold, and thankfully I didn't give up because it started looking better and better. And so here I'm kind of going down with a second coat, and you can still see the bronze kind of peeping through a little bit because these are gold straps, but I didn't want to paint them just solid gold because then they don't look aged enough. Doing it this way kind of gives it a little bit of realism, a little bit of age. Now, of course, we could have used real metal straps, and that would have been cool. But I had cut these out already, and the original idea was to stain them a different color wood. And if you ever look at steampunk pieces or kind of Baroque or Victorian era pieces, the woodwork is just amazing. And different stain colors and everything is so intricate. And that was the original idea. But then I'm like, you know what? This is totally missing metal elements, which is super important in a Frankenstein laboratory type of situation. We have like no metal going on. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to change these straps into metal. So hence why we're using wood instead of real metal straps. So I think that's pretty good right there. And when you're right up on it, the gold like reflects in your face. So sometimes you got to step back and kind of look, where it's dull, so you can get a true sense of where the gold really is. Because when it's like reflecting all up in your face, it all looks like really gold and that you've overdone it. But no, oftentimes with metallic, sometimes more is more, So after this, we'll go in with our black, put in our rivets, and then age our rivets. All around. We're just going to rustify everything all together. Like the Beatles say, all together now, all together now. All right, so I'm not going to be singing anytime soon as a second career. So I'm going to let that kind of sit while we prepare our black, which is somewhere. Put my gold away. I'm going to use our good black, our black that is not goopified quite yet. I love the goopified one, the one that's pretty dry. That paint is about 15 years old, not this one, but some of my blacks back there. And it's nice when they're a little more chunky, because if you ever want to do some texture work, then it's great for that. So I am just going to, get some of that gold off of my brush here, and we'll continue with the black. And no paper towel. Let me grab a paper towel piece right here. My floor, oh goodies. Give that a nice wipe. Now, normally when you're dry brushing, you want to try and not use a brush that you just, wetted. You want true dry brush. And that's why I love buying multiple kits of these craft brushes, because they're super inexpensive. And, you can have multiple copies for each color, so that way you don't wet it. But for our purposes, gliding against the gold, it actually ended up working pretty well. And I use a combination of dry brushing and then running my fingers over the paint to get the the desired effect. And I'm going to see if I can just move this a little closer. That's much better. You can see much more detail that way. And Dave is saying, I'll sing for you. I'm one of those drummer singer types. Awesome. Awesome. Like a drum line. I don't know if you have one of those harnesses where you can like drum line and sing, or a mic on your kit where you can sing and play at the same time. But I'm going to start here in the corner, and you can see kind of where the black stops, and then there's shiny gold. That's pretty lame. So let's try and match up these two sides a little bit. And I'm going to start with doing like some downward to me type of strokes. And you can see with the paint brush slightly wet, you can get some nice striations pretty easily here. And then I like to kind of dab with my finger. And once you've gotten a lot of the paint off the brush, you can actually go in and go like this, because it gives it those pits, pit-looking dots. And so let's kind of fuse that little corner together. This is still a little light, so let me darken it up. Get this a little more aged. And then you can smudge it with your fingers. Anytime you get something that looks very obviously brush strokey, then yeah, I like to just kind of smudge it along a little bit just to blend it. And I know corners tend to get really cruddy, and so that's why I'm concentrating on adding a little bit more of our paint in the corners. I also have spare coffee grounds that we can kind of add to the corners, like crud is building up in certain corners, and that might look cool. So that's poll number 2. Poll number 1 was, do you want to age the rivets? And we had a unanimous yes. So poll number 2 is if you want to add some coffee ground crud once we remove this tape on the corners. Like, perhaps there's an electrical burn situation going on. Perhaps the wood has gotten wet, and now it's perhaps some mold growing on our wood. So here I'm beginning to kind of just use the same type of motions, and you don't want them to be super even. And then use your finger to just get rid of those brush strokes so it's not so obvious, like, hey, I painted this on. Make it just look like it could maybe be real. And I'm not going to go too nuts with the black, because that starts to obliterate our gold. I kind of want to match what I got going on here, which is a lot of gold. Here you can see the pitting effect, and once a lot of that paint is off, it's just really poking it up and down until it's sufficiently pitted to your liking. So I'm going to move this here. Frank Nook is here. Hi, Gearhead. Nice of you to join us for our Wrench Army stream. And I'm like getting through this because I saw the wind picking up, and I know we're supposed to get a storm today. So I'm like, no power outages, please. And I'm going to do the same thing here. We see black and then it's all beautiful. So let's uglify this a little bit. Let's make it like real ugly. An ugly corner. And so I really like these streaks going, and I'm just going to take my finger and blend them with the gold a little bit so it's not, just standing out so black. And I'm going to take these streaks a little bit taller on this side, and then just start to mix them up with cross streaks. Now another way to do metal is to indeed paint this all black and paint your first bronze coat, and then use sandpaper and sand it that way to start achieving your look. And that's pretty believable. It's one of my favorite ways of doing metal. But because we have this beautiful stained surface, the last thing I want is to start sanding and accidentally sand the surface. Otherwise, we'd have to mask it totally off, and we want to, continue our project. So I figured the easiest way is to do it this way. Now, of course, when streaming, I always try and avoid, I don't like things to be too even. Like if this is pretty much in the middle, I don't want to do one right on the opposite side. So perhaps going to this side will kind of crud up this side, and so you have kind of a diagonal matching situation. So that way it's not too matchy-matchy. It's looks like they go together. So that's a bit dark, and so I'm just going to take my finger and lightly rub it in the direction that I was painting, and then that just gets it to blend. And the more you rub it in, the more it blends in. So that's maybe a little too blended. I'm gonna bring it back. Bring it back. There we go. And I'm just gonna do shorter strokes as it fades away. And we have another happy little rust spot. So look at all this friendship going on here. So I'm hoping Bob Ross would be proud. And I'm just gonna do some pitting here. And because we've used our brush quite a bit to do this, we get some cool pitting effects. And perhaps I'll make a happy little pit right here. And so we get some nice kind of irregular and just kind of go nuts with it. And I think I'm gonna stop there, and maybe this area here now is left very gold. So let's, you know, we've been doing a lot of our streaks from this side. So why don't we do some from this side? I'm gonna grab a little bit more black. And the nice thing is, if you mess up and you're like, whoops, I put way too much black, we'll just go over it in gold again, or take a section and go over it in bronze, get it nice and solid, and start over. These techniques are super easy to fix, you know, and blend together. So what was I doing? Yes, I was doing it from this side now. So I'm just gonna, and you can combine doing the flat side of the brush and the edge of the brush. Gives you different effects. See, that gives you like a nice big old piece of corrosion going on. And then we can further make it look a little bit different just by rubbing our fingers across. And then to bring it back a little, very lightly. That looks pretty good. It almost looks like kind of burn marks going through. So if we add some black and some ink wash or acrylic wash on this side, a little bit of coffee grounds, then you get that look. So you guys have to decide. Coffee grounds to make it more aged on the wood or not. The first decision is already made. So I think I'm gonna stop at this point, and I went ahead and did this, but it's missing the black. So why don't we see where it's black here and kind of bring it to this side? And I'm actually using the camera angle to help me out here. That way it matches and it looks like it just kind of folded over a little bit. Just so we have a little bit of interest on this side. So I'm just running my finger because I can't see the front. Only you guys can see the front. And so for this, I'm going to do some pitting. And see here, you can see the pitting much better because I didn't paint any black. And you can tap it with your finger if it's too dark, and that mixes it right in. So see, we got some effects going and bleeding over to the other side, which makes it way more believable. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Oh, I'm stuck on this side. So I'm just using my finger to get my bearing here as to how far it goes, because you guys can see. But the way I'm holding it, I can't see. So I'm painting blind, and it looks like we kind of stop right there. I'm going to just blend it and add a little bit of corner pitting. There we go. So that looks quite au naturel, right? And I'm gonna back you guys up, and let's get like the big view here as to how it looks. And it's looking pretty. I'm gonna turn this my way here. It's looking like it belongs, which is nice. So let's add some rivets now. We got our border looking nice and gold, but with some touches of aging. Not too much, you know, just enough to give interest. And I'm gonna stick this in my water over here, and let's Rosie rivet this thing up. Or we can get the bargain version of her, which is me, the Rachel riveter. So let's find my thumbtacks. And how many do I have on this side? Let's take a look here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I spaced them 2 inches apart, which is something that we learned with our corner floating shelves build. Because at first I had them 1/2 inch apart, and then I had them 1 inch apart, and it just looked like upholstery buttons, you know. And I found that 2 inches is kind of that great number for strapping that looks pretty realistic. So I'm gonna prepare 9. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. So obviously they're way too shiny. So let's take care of that first while they have their stems on. So I'm gonna use 100 grit sandpaper over here, and let's start to just dull their little noggins, right? That can't sound good to you guys. And Frank Nook is saying, great project. Thanks for doing this today. Yeah, I'm going to squeeze one in for you guys, right? Get this control panel done. No excuses. And Frozen Mustache, dirty look on the edges. All right, so we have a vote there. And I'm trying to talk above that. That's super annoying. Dave Beck, also coffee. Yeah, better than smelly old paint. That's true. If we were doing oil painting, it's even smellier, especially with the paint thinner you have to use to clean your brushes. At least acrylic, I can use water. And Dave Beck saying, as in coffee smells better than paint. Indeed. The last time we did our bubbler project where we used a lot of coffee grounds, probably one of my all-time favorite streams because it was so tastefully smelly. I felt like I was in a coffee shop, which, it's kind of nice for, the regular old garage. So I kind of... I'll tell you guys a secret. I kind of didn't vacuum it up for a bit because every time I came in here, it was so nice. It's like walking into like a Starbucks or better yet, like one of those mom and pop coffee shops where they're just constantly brewing and it smells so good because a lot of them are like homebrew formulas. All right. This is riveting. No pun intended, really. No pun intended. And how many do we have left? All right, 3. Nah. I don't math on Saturdays, by the way. All right, 2 more. And I've tried different grits, like anything less than 100 will put in some really nice scratches, but takes longer to dull. So I like to start with 100, and then if you really want to add some gouging to your rivets, then you can go down to 80 or 60, and you'll get some really nice deep cuts. Because thumbtacks aren't that hard, so their surfaces mar up pretty easily. So now we have our thumbtacks ready to go. But what I like to do is, I'm going to give you guys a much better view here. You can see some of the little thumbs or little stems, I meant to say, that are in here. Now I like to cut these in half. And the big reason being that I have zero trust in just hammering these into the wood. Or you can drill little pilot holes and put them in that way. But given that when I got the box, already stems were missing, I don't trust the construction of these things too well. So I'm cutting it half. And I forgot to put my glasses because these do fly. I put my hand to cover so that way it doesn't, but sometimes they do escape. So it's a good idea to have them on. And Carrot Paca is here. Hello, Rachel, he says. Well, hello. I haven't seen you in a while. Maybe you watch and haven't been commenting. I will not lie. I am one of those live stream types as well where I like to watch, but I don't comment so much. All right. Which ones did I do? This one and this one. Let me separate them correctly. These are done and these aren't. So yeah, and just halfway through the stem is enough. And then what we're going to do is use a nail to create just kind of like a little pilot hole that these can sit in. And Kareth is also saying, "We boy finished now. Brilliant." He's got some clapping hands. Dave had some drums going on. Little emojis. All right. So if you can imagine, for our floating corner shelves, we did over 500 rivets. 500 dulling of the noggins. Cutting of the stems. Oh my gosh, it took forever. And when I started it, I thought, oh, I can do this like assembly line style. It'll take no time. Oh, I am not gonna lie. Doing the rivets took longer than actually painting and building the shelves. Each one and dulling them all till you get all the shine. Yeah, I was regretting it until I saw the final product, and then I was like, yeah, I was kind of like really proud that I had decided to stick with it and just keep going. So here we have our little cut up stems, and I'm going to move them aside because we're going to be hammering on here, and they're going to be dancing around like little popcorns. So I'm going to put this here, and I have this level, which has got, you know, a ruler on here, which is great for just kind of measuring this stuff. So I'm going to do every 2 inches. So I'm just going to kind of line this up here and guesstimate where the halfway point between here and this part of the, or I guess this part is. And you don't have to be super precise if your holes are not going exactly down the center, because these heads are pretty big and they'll cover up any type of mark. So I wasn't quite right here. And if you look really closely, I kind of mismeasured and I didn't go all the way to 1 inch. So I can use a little paint to disguise him, but he's kind of chilling there. He's not too, he's not too visible. And for this, I'm going to put my eyeballs on. One moment. There we go. Get the eyes on. And use a little Sharpie here. This is about halfway of the width, and I'm starting from the very edge. And for the first one, I'm only going to go 1 inch from the edge. And I'm just going to budge this a little bit. There. I'm going to start at the 1 inch from the edge, and then each one will be 2 inches. And I'm just going up and marking it all the way up. I'm going to go off screen here a second, but you can kind of get the idea. So voila, you can see the tiny, tiny little Sharpie marks. And as we're getting done with stuff, I'm going to start putting it away, which is a rarity here. We usually are taking stuff out, and it's never ending of stuff. So I'm just going to put this over here because we're going to start hammering. And then we'll get to the bubbler. Oh, that part is awesome. So here I have just kind of like a nice nail. It's got a nice big old head on it. So it'll minimize the chances of me going for my fingers, which happens. So here you can see, I want to move myself because I am totally up in your way. You can see that the dots here are a little to this side. They're not exactly center. And that's okay. I'm going to use the nail to correct. I'm just going to go right beside the dot. And watch your guys' volume. It might be a little loud. I'm warning you after the fact. But better late than never. So you can see I'm hammering in the center, which is like, to the side of the mark because it went a little askew. But that's okay. The little heads will cover it. Ooh, not quite center. And we got the little thumbtacks jumping around over there, which I knew would happen. That's why I put them over there, because they'd be jumping way worse over here. So now that we have our, wrong side, our thumbtacks drilled out, I'm actually going to do what I did the last time. This was like way easier instead of having to move myself all over the place. There we go. And bring you guys in just a little. Much better. Whoop, wrong way. There. Half the battle is just positioning this stuff. I'm going to tell you, man. All right, I'm going to put these guys here where you guys can see them. And I'm going to whip out our wood glue. And there we go. Oh, we got some crusties. Let me get rid of these crusties. Gross. Glue crusties. Never good. All right. So all I'm going to do is just literally put a dab on the stem. Just on the stem, and let the glue dribble down onto the back side of the head. So just like that. That's, enough. And then I'm going to start on this side and try and line it up. Good thing I got my eyeballs on. And push it down. And if it, pops up a little bit, just give it a nice little hammer into place. And I found that this is way more reliable than trying to get the whole stem in there. I mean, unless you pre-drill everything, then you'd be okay. But I do not trust the construction of the attachment of the stem to the head in no way, shape, or form. So I got a little bit of a glue situation kind of seeping out. Get that cleared up. And then we'll have this side done. And then we can try, I'll try like a ink wash or an acrylic wash with black over top of the heads, and the water will naturally kind of dribble around, which will create a dark halo around each of our rivets. So that's the plan in my head. We'll see if it actually materializes when we do it. And we got how many more? Just a few more. But yeah, imagine doing this like over 500 times. I mean, it was worth it. I'm not going to complain, you know, even though that's totally what I'm doing right now. But it took a while. And I just had like riveting parties all by myself here. And assembly line style, sanding till I got bored of it, cutting stems till I got bored of it. But little by little, night by night, it got done. And now I have some awesome shelving that you guys can see over there, you know. But it's got stuff on it, you know, so you can't really see the steampunk effect. But you see the farmhouse doors that I did. I have one more set of farmhouse doors to do where it's cut off. You can't see it, you know, because it's got no doors and it's a hot mess. So I conveniently tilted the camera in a way that disguises it. I have to get used to this new view we introduced. I'm like, where are you? Where are you? Who am I talking to? Oh, that one's kind of popped up. There we go. And we got one more. Oh, there you are. And then we're done the side. Oh, before we get too far, remind me, we need to already think of a way of how we're going to hang this. And I have an idea. Before we get the bubbler on here, and then we got to work on the back of it, and with all this stuff hanging off of it is going to be like a hot mess. So let me do that now, and let's figure out, before we ink wash this situation, how best to do this. Now, wow, this is like really light, so this might be an easy decision. So let's see. I think what I'm gonna do is use one of those traditional picture hangers with the teeth. This is so light that it's really not holding a whole bunch of weight, versus the cathedral window, where I used actual 100-pound picture frame wire with D-rings and all of that. So that's ready to go and be hung. I'll probably hang it like on a stud, and then I can hang this just like a regular picture frame right beside it. So, all right, crisis averted. You know, I wanted, if this thing needed D-rings, I wanted to get that on now before we start putting a whole bunch of stuff to the front of it. But I can put this on later real easy. So crisis averted. All right, onward now. So we have this pretty much done. And so now it's the acrylic wash. So I'm being super good. I'm putting things away, and we're done with this. Look at that. Oh, I should stream more often. This shop would be like spick and span clean. All right, so let's see. I'll get you here, and let's choose a kind of a tiny brush. Let's see what I got going on here. Who's gonna be the victim? Maybe you. You'll be the victim. So I still have some black left over, and so what I'm going to do is grab this guy here, and let me grab this brush out of here before he causes problems. Let's start stuff. I'll put you aside. And let's see. Maybe I'll pick up some black. I'm just trying to figure out the consistency of how I want it black. Let's dip it in the dirty water, and let's start there. And actually, before I do it right on the piece, why don't we just kind of test it here? Oh, that's not bad. Maybe a little bit more water. Yeah. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. And I got gold all over my thumb, so I'm just rubbing it on the work surface here. And let's figure out, let's start down here, which is kind of easy for all of us to see. And I'm just going to start to dab on his head, like shampooing his little head. There we go. And maybe just kind of letting it naturally run. I'm just going to let that dry and see what kind of effect. Worst case scenario, we can probably wipe it off. I'm just kind of letting it dribble and create a puddle around it. And hopefully that'll give us kind of a natural effect. Perhaps it needs to be a little darker. Maybe I'm being a little too conservative with our ink wash here, or acrylic wash. I hear it called both ways, so that's why I toggle between the two. And Dave Beck saying, how heavy is the fog juice? Not that heavy. I was kind of worried about that because it's only anchored from the top, not the bottom. So I thought, am I going to need like a little platform on the bottom just to kind of hold it in place? I don't think so. It's not that heavy, but now that you mention it, the weight distribution is going to be askew. So that's a super good point now that you mentioned, because the fog bubbler tube is going to be on the one side, and then we have the switches on the other side, and the switches don't weigh anything. So it's going to be like heavy, right side heavy as I look at it. So that's something to think about. So maybe what I can do is screw in two screws and tie some picture frame wire behind them. So I'll probably end up doing that. Yes, so good point on that one. Like if the bubbler were in the middle, I think we'd be okay. But because it's on the side like that, it's going to be a kind of weird weight distribution, and I don't want this thing to hang all crooked all the time. You know those picture frames you always walk by and you're like, fixing it and just adjusting it just a little bit. That's super annoying, so I don't want to do that. So I'm working my way over here. Well, good thing we had tape there. That was your guys' idea too. I was going to go for it. You know me. Sometimes when I shouldn't be brave are the times I'm brave. And then when I should use some caution is the time I don't use any caution. So always winds up getting me in trouble. But then I redeem myself because whatever mess up I make turns into a happy little surprise. And so it almost like emboldens you to be more bold and make mistakes and maybe not mask things off when you really should. All right, so these are looking they're looking pretty good. Look at that. As they're drying now. When they were wet, I was a little, I don't know about this. But now that they're drying, they're looking pretty good. I'm liking some of the, I'll show you guys, some of the puddling that we're getting right near them, I think is looking pretty good. So I might do another coat, but let's move on to these guys right here. So yes, we'll definitely rethink the little hanger idea that I had, because I don't want this thing just being crooked all the time. So let's see. Ooh, I'm heading towards my last. Oh no, not my last one. I thought so, but no. Alas. Alas. Yeah, I'm reluctant to acrylic wash the entire, because I thought about that. Just do the whole frame and get some effects there. But because it's wood, wood can be a little porous. I mean, it's gotten plenty of coats of paint, so it's, got enough not to get to the wood. But just in case. And so, yeah, those rivets look pretty good. And I'm wondering if we put some more, like go heavy on some of them, so maybe they kind of drip a little bit. Oh, none of you want to drip now? Is that what's going on? Maybe not all of them. I'll give like random ones a second coating. Oh, no, that's the real paint. No, we're going to go with the watered down version. Oh, look at that. Look at these up here. They're already starting to kind of drip down. So this is something where this should probably stay upright like this. And so what I'll probably do afterwards is give these one last kind of go around and let it dry upright. So that looks pretty good. Yeah. Nice. So that was enough to kind of bring that acrylic wash down and make it look a ton more realistic. So let's move on to, I don't know. So we can either get our switches on here, and one thing I wanted to do is just age this a little bit because the panel looks all nicely bronze. I think I'm going to add a couple more gold streaks, and this looks like really shiny plastic. So we're gonna, the look is cool. I love the knife switch, and this is going to control our fog juice because anytime I'm not supervising it, I might just kind of like want to turn it off so that way I don't accidentally burn the coils in our mini vape pen. And then here will just be the master on and off to our entire, I'm like looking at the wrong you guys. This is gonna be like the master switch to our entire operation here. So let's see, I think, let me age this a little bit and let me clean that in our dirty water. But once all the colors start mixing, then you start to get some realistic effects. So I think I'm going to take this big one. Sometimes big ones are good for this effect. And I'm going to take some of the leftover gold situation that I got going on here. Oh, I've acrylic washed myself. So I'm going to have to paint kind of like this. Maybe the acrylic wash at this juncture was not a wise choice. Perhaps that should have been a last step type of thing, I'm thinking at this point. But we're going to own it. We're gonna own it. So let's see, I had some nice kind of streaks going like this. So I'm gonna add a couple more, especially concentrating on some of the sides that we're gonna see. Because the switch will be covering this. This is gonna be mostly covered here. So I really wanna concentrate on this area here. Just a few more, I don't wanna go too nuts, where then it starts to look too much like this, on the sides. So let's just, no. That's a bit much. And that's what you do. You just kind of wipe it away with your finger like that mistake never happened. Oh, I'm getting brave now. That doesn't look bad though. It's a happy little mistake. See, Bob Ross has made me totally bold now. Which might be a good thing. You never know. More, because when I did this it looked great, but you always have to remember that paint dries darker, and so this will kind of, it might look stark right now, but it'll kind of calm down, it'll chill out, and it'll look much better blended. But again, you can always use your finger to get rid of some of those stroke marks. And I think I'm going to add some, a couple cross hatches, a couple cross ones here. But not too much because I kind of like this thing that's going on. So now I'm going to go in pretty heavy and just outline the edge. Ooh. And then it'll be ready for our switches. And then we just have to attach our bubbler, and then we're rocking and rolling. And push you back the other way. Just to kind of highlight the edge of the plate. The edges are always the ones that take the beating. So we can assume that at some point, someone painted this little panel here black. And just from all the stuff hitting the edges, that black paint is just wearing out and revealing the gold and or brass underneath. Here we go. So we have a nice border, and I'm going to make this one. Sometimes taking the flat part of your brush, resting it on the edge, and just shimmying it back and forth is enough to kind of give you a much better crisp edge. Assuming that your brush isn't like completely, the hairs are all pretty nice and straight on it. It's not all like crazy like you just woke up in the morning, like bedhead. So it's nice and flat and sharp. So that's good for creating kind of these edges. And so now we can, now one thing I can also do is maybe add some silver touches in here, a little bit of silver. So that's another decision point for you guys if you want to see some silver going on. But we're definitely going to see some silver and a little bit of gold going on here. So we can try it on here, and if we like it, we can add it on here. But I don't know, the panel looks pretty nice as is. It's very rare for me to stop while I'm ahead. Usually I keep going. So the next thing I'm going to do is rough up. That was almost those little thumbtack bits. Can you imagine them all spilling on the floor? I'm going to be stepping on that for days. Even if I vacuum, I'm still going to be stepping on that for days. So you know what? Better idea. We're not thumbtacking anymore. So I'm just going to put you far, far away, like right by my foot. Far, far away. So I'm going to use, this is kind of big. Maybe I have something a little bit easier to maneuver. And I'm just going to go ahead and rough this up a little bit, and the direction doesn't matter, you know, kind of gently so I don't ruin this awesome switch. This is courtesy of Dave. He sent a whole goodie, and I did not get a chance to go to the P.O. box. It turns out that you know, our fan mail P.O. box, they're on summer hours. So I get there, I'm like, what? How could you do summer hours? But this place does pretty vacate in the summer. It's kind of nice. Like the traffic is a little bit easier to bear, you know, all that. If you guys a better view. So you can see it's already beginning to look a little dull. We're going to cheer it up though with some paint. And this is just to give it better adhesion. It doesn't adhere as well to the shiny. Although if it's a piece that you're barely going to touch, you know, you're probably okay. But I just customarily give everything like a nice little dulling before paint. So let's see if I can maybe get in between these buttons a little bit, or knobs that anchor down our wires. Now this is a surface mount, so the wires all mount to these pegs, and I'll probably end up drilling a hole at some point to move them to the back of the panel. And I think we can use some old-timey or regular wire, but then wrap some twine on it to make it look more old-timey. So I think there's ways. We got ways to deal with it. Oh, I haven't even done the top. Look at that. It's all shiny. That's not acceptable. We want doom and gloom, all dull. A little bit on the buttons, and I say we do the little handle too. I'm just going to gently turn it in here. See how this ends up looking. There. And let me just grab a paper towel and get all the dusts off of it. So that way the paint is not adhering to the dust and not the actual piece. So let me just give it a wipe down here real quick. And we can start painting this sucker. Now I'm going to move this out of the way. Kind of hang it, actually let it rest upright so the acrylic wash can continue doing its thing. And we can work on this guy. Have our own space for him. All right. So what shall we do? And I'm going to, since he's so tiny, I'm going to bring you guys in closer because he's so tiny. There we go. It's a cool little knife switch though. And I believe I read up on the specs and it can handle 6 volts, which is perfect for, you know, our situation because it only requires 3.3 volts is what we're going to be sending through this. So it's pretty good. I'm going to be using from our 12 volt main wall socket. I'm going to be using a buck converter to convert it down to the 3 volts that our pump needs to run the fog juice. And then probably another buck converter for the LED lights, which require 5 volts. So that should be fine. And then the Arduino is going to power our lightning detector through its 3.3 volt pin. So all in all, I think we should be good. I have a bag of them, so we're good there. We can also do our own voltage divider using resistors. You know, that's that. Although, like a lot of people say, it's not great to put like a load right off of that because the resistors will start to get really hot. So it's nice to use a dedicated voltage regulator in that situation. So which one do I want to use? But I'm always open to ideas. I have a bunch of buck converters. If you guys have other ideas for reducing voltage from the 12 volt main one that I'm going to be sending through. Fog juice sounds funny. Yeah, the fog juice will basically is hooked up to a vape pen that is then going to release its fog through the tower or Frankenstein's laboratory, because we made the roof all cracked and stuff, so the fog will be able to go up. So it looks like, Frankenstein didn't have such a great experiment, and all of a sudden his poor tower is going to light up and it's going to fog up. And so I'm hoping that the little pump is going to, output some decent fog. I think it will. During its test, that little 3.3 volt pump did really, really well. So I can't wait to see it actually in the castle. It was nice seeing it, outside and then testing it. So let's start with the gold. And for this, I do want to really thin it out. And let me move this. I'm moving things all out of your way here, where you can't see. It's mystery painting. Will it turn out well? I'll hide it behind myself, and then if it turns out really, really bad, you'll never know. I'll just say, oh, it looks amazing. All right, so I'm going to move you out of the way and figure out how best. And the objective is not to make it look overly gold. It's to just dirty it up and add hints of gold and silver. And the nice thing is that, again, metallics, you can be a little more liberal with the paint. Because it's just not as concentrated. And that's all paint. All metallics, I find, are just not all that concentrated. So that's kind of neat. It creates kind of a weird wave effect. Now, hanging on to it is going to be a bit of a challenge. And when it dries, ooh, that's very gold. It's very gold. Let me, maybe I'll do a little bit of this. Yeah, we'll wipe that off. And I might back you guys up just a tad so this thing can focus. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way so it doesn't freak out. Try and get under this knob here to make it look realistic. And Kareth Paka is saying, the vape pen is a brilliant idea. Yeah, and so we built that together quite a few streams ago. And this thing just keeps wanting to unfocus anytime I get my hands in the way. So I'm going to try and paint without my hands in the picture. Quite challenging, but we'll do it. Oh, I missed this little spot here. And where I didn't dull it up enough, the paint has trouble sticking. I already noticed. So this plastic, the shiny parts are not paint friendly, which is usually the case with plastic. That's why you gotta just encourage it, talk nice to it. And I'm gonna try and get in here with some pokes. Same way we did our pitting effect. I'm kind of trying to get in while keeping the paint away from the contact surfaces. Although there's plenty of contact surface, so it's not gonna, let me move this. It's always gonna focus on the thing that's closest to it. So I'm just gonna make that not the thing closest to it. And so that's already looking, pretty good. And now let's add some silver. I'm not going to clean off my brush or anything. I'm just going to dip it in the silver. And these are all acrylic paints. You can get modeling paint if you want. I like to buy just the big tubes because you can get them for like $7. And if you're like me, I do a various different projects. I do various different projects. Everything from, I get to yapping with you guys. Everything from a miniature building to, sculpting different things. So I like to buy the larger acrylic tubes because they just last longer and they get you through a lot more projects. The model paints are great for actual models. So if all you're going to do is models, I highly encourage sticking with those paints because they're specifically made to stick, to plastics and things. So I highly advise that. Other than that, I'm usually like scuffing things. But for me, it's more versatile. So it's nice having just a tube that I can go with. Ooh. Oh no. Can I fit a pinky? Oh, I can fit a pinky. Pinky fits in there. I'm just gonna shove it around. Oh, there we go. Got some dirt on it now. So that starts to age it. And on camera, it looks awful shiny. But in reality, it's quite dull. The gold and the silver are blending really, really nicely together. And I'll see if I can take some pictures afterwards so you can see perhaps a more realistic, or maybe it does look good on your end and it's just my view right here that doesn't look as great. But mixing the gold and the silver is always kind of neat. It's a kind of a cheap and easy way to create an aged effect without going nuts. For whatever reason, when you mix those two colors together and just streak them across each other, it makes it look more aged. So that's looking pretty good. And now I got to take care of these sides because that's just ugly going on there. We got to bring it down to the sides. And for this, I might just use silver and kind of go down like this, leaving some black visible. And because the camera picks up the shine so much more, than the duller stuff, it just looks really shiny, but it's not. It's nicely blended, and when it dries, it is going to dry darker. So I'm already anticipating that and just kind of loading up on the paint. Ooh, that's too much loading up. Too much. There we go. And get that little corner. Yes, and so Kareth Pace is saying, don't know how to lessen the voltage though. Yes, that's what we're using the buck converters for. They're going to convert, in essence, the voltage from a higher voltage to a lower voltage. And I'll show you an example of how that works on Monday's stream. I'll have a buck converter out and we'll test, how to convert one aside, from the project, because the ones that we'll actually be using will be behind this control panel and not very accessible. So I'll have an extra one for us to play with, different voltages and stuff. And I think this is my last side, isn't it, guys? Ooh. Knock it off. Getting a little too excited. Oh, oh no, it is. See how that's dried more and it's beginning to look more natural. And I'm just going to see how we have a bit much going on here. I'm just going to fade it out by using our pitting technique, which is basically poke and stab. And that looks, more corroded, and it's kind of like fading out into the back of the panel. So I think that is looking pretty good right there. Oh, we got to do this little guy and probably the knobs, or else look, the knobs will start looking kind of lame in comparison. So let's get that done. I think I'll do the knobs first, so that way I don't paint this and then I'm using this to turn it and just, jacking it all up. So let's see here. I'm just going to turn it on this side because I already noticed that it's got little ridges, to give you the grip to turn it. Now I'm going to take advantage of that and take the brush flat and I'm going to drag it lightly across. Oh, and hold it. that would help. And see how it kind of picks up the raised edges? And it works better if you're using less paint than I am. But you just, and of course it's not digging my hands. It's wanting to not focus. It's like that. And Dave Beck is totally right, which is silly because it is the amps that kills the things. That's like, you know, you compare the voltages on all your power and you're like, oh, okay, as long as you don't give more volts than what the item requires, because you can burn it out, you're good. But yes, it's really the amps that gets you. And with us, probably the amps that we have to look out for are the LEDs, because depending on the color schemes you're running, they can draw a bunch of amps. So say you're doing bright white, full on brightness and all that, and you're running hundreds and hundreds of LEDs, that can draw a decent amount of amps. And so it's okay that your power source provides the 5 volts that the power strip requires, but does it provide enough amps to power your LED strip if you have everything set to white full blast, hundreds and hundreds of them? So very, very true. Good point. Yep. And so just by dragging it across, you see that it picks up those raised edges of our thumb screws there. And I'm going to do the same. See how I kind of weathered this guy a little bit? I'm going to move him over, push this down, and do the same. And just kind of go on the edges. Because that's really, if you think about it, what gets trashed is the edges of everything. So that's the areas that you want to like hammer a little bit. And now I'm going to add just a little bit of silver and literally just dab it in a few places. Or else it's going to cover all my nice gold. So I'm going to do the same on the other. And we're just going to pick a couple spots to dab it. Ooh. He was already full tight, so we're going in the loosening direction. And now same thing here. I'm just going to outline the outer edge with our silver. And using just the flat side of our brush and just basically dragging real gently across. And that kind of outlines the top of our knob. And there we go. Whoop, keeps wanting to hide from you guys. We have a nicely kind of aged situation going on here. And the last thing we need to do is this little bit here, and I'm just going to wipe the excess, and I haven't, cleaned my brush at all. And let's start off again with the gold, and then we'll layer on. Now this doesn't have any like ridges or, anything like that. So we're going to get a bit creative, and again, really focus on the edges. So it's got a square base, and it's got this cylindrical top. So I think I'm going to start with the top, and this is the part where you're going to grab the most. So I'm going to take my brush and go down like this. Let's wear the black off. Pretend it's like wearing off. So we want to leave this base, a little bit more black, but just the top. Get that a little more gold. I was rereading Dave's comment, and yes, too much amps will definitely kill things. So it's not just about not having enough amps from your power supply. It's things drawing too much amps too that kills other things. It's quite deadly. It's like one of those nature shows. The predator amp is hunting. So you can see kind of what I did there. You can see that oh, there we go, it focused. I'm not going to go in too close because it angers it. So right around here, you can see looks a lot more worn, and then it gets more and more black as we move our way down. So I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm going to continue with the gold on this boxy piece right here. And for this, keep it for you guys. Same thing. I just pick the edges using the flat part of my brush and just drag. So that's that. Ooh, I don't want to touch that quite yet. Let's drag that. And I just give it a moment for it to focus for you guys. A little more gold. And I might decide to hit it up again in a little bit if this dries kind of too dark. So see, I kind of went a little heavier there because I already know it's going to dry a bit dark. So I don't mind kind of, ooh, it's a bit too hammered. I'm just going to use my finger to move that around. And then the edges I like to make very, very gold or very metallic, depending on the metallic you're using. Could be gold, could be silver, because that's the most worn out usually. So let's go in with some silver now. And I think I'm just going to do the very top. I don't think I'm going to drag the silver too far down. Just have it kind of blend with the gold there. So you can see it goes from silver, a tiny bit of gold, and then darker black at the bottom. And we're going to do the same thing with our edges. A little bit of silver. Because now it's really rubbed off. And use your fingers to kind of get rid of any obvious brush strokes. Sometimes the brush strokes is what ends up giving you that metallic, that brushed metal. But if it globs, ooh, just like it did there, it's just like a big old glob like that, then you can just use your finger to wipe it away and artificially give it that streak that you were going for until you overglobbed. So I'm going a little bit heavier than what you would a dry brush situation. And one of the great things to do before I had even started this, if I thought of it, but I totally spaced, is because this is plastic, you can take a file and add nicks and scratches to it, which gives it all the more that realistic, just this thing's been beat up appearance rather than 2D paint. It gives it a lot of great 3D effects, which is something I did while modifying, just a child's toy into Hans Solo's blaster, his blaster. And so I went in with I'm just going in with my finger here now, but I went in with a file, gave it natural scratches where a gun would get scratches from being held and handled and battle worn and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up looking, pretty realistic. It gave it a lot of the 3D effects that I was looking for. And then when you add paint on top, the 2D onto the 3D, then it's like 4D, No, it isn't really, but it really enhances all of those textures. And that's one of the reasons I like to use coffee grounds for rust. It's great to paint on, but when you have a bit of a 3D effect, it sells it a little bit better. So this is, what we came up with. All in all, I think it ends up, it looks pretty good. It looks nice and worn. Like it's seen some action. It's been turning that fog juice on and off quite a few times. So that's the objective. So we got this guy painted up. He doesn't really require any weathering, so we can get them on here. But I'm trying to wonder if I should put the fog juice on first or if we should drill these holes for our bubbler. Yes, maybe I should do that first. Actually, I changed my mind. I'll get these on first because I will indeed lose them if they keep, just keep sitting around. So looking at our rivets, guys, that was the call. I'm just kind of changing directions here for a sec. And I'm going to back you out. You guys made the right call here. Look at that. They look way less shiny. And I really like some of the pooling that happens around them. And so what I'm going to do is once we finish up, I'm going to give everything one more very, very light acrylic wash coat and then store it upright and just kind of let everything pool on the bottom sides. And that's going to give us a really believable corrosion effect, So nice job, guys. You guys are really good at special effects and stuff. So all I'm doing, I'm going to start with this switch because I remember it was a little bit of a bear to get on. So I'm removing the top nut, which I guess, I kind of consider it a locking nut. Then our nice little bezel, which goes in one way. There's a little notch here where our off is. So I'm going to pull him off. Then there's I kept calling this a locking nut, but it's not. It's a washer. So I'm going to call it a locking washer. And I'm going to stick him in and let's see, it's marked on and off. So I'm going to make sure the on is facing up so I don't confuse myself later when I'm trying to turn it on. Oh, it's so bad. Look at me. Put this aside. It's going to all the way out to you guys. And then you have to be ready to catch the stuff falling off the table. So I'm just going to feed it through the bottom here. And I remember it's a tight fit because I cut the hole a little snug. And especially since it's kind of there we go. So I got the nut. And let me get the washer on. And bring you guys into the action a little bit. Every time I bring you guys in, I have to shove it forward, you know, and be working kind of like this. But the most important is you guys get the most awesome view ever. Stick our little bezel here on. And then our locking nut. This is the hardest to get started. Once you get it started, you're good. But I'm always like twisting, and you gotta get it to catch. This is always the tough part. Get it started. Oh, I always feel like it's gonna catch, and then it doesn't. Come on. Let me see if I can push it out just a little bit more. There we go. That's better. I give myself barely. I'm actually going to keep my hand underneath here, telling it I mean business. So there, get our little off situation here. There we go. Now I'm not going to tighten it all the way in case I need to pull it back out to help wire or, you know, pull things through. So I'm just going to, you know, get it hand tight on there. And then I'll worry about tightening it down for real as a final step. But at least we can start mocking this stuff up. And I'm going to like pull you guys back out again. There we go. So that looks pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, our little switch. And then now I'm going to attach this guy on here. And for him, I have a kit here, and let's see what we got going on. So all it needs to go through is, these are 2 1/4-inch panels right here, so that's 1/2 inch, and then it needs to go through, oh, that's it, because I cut a hole out for this backing board, so it just needs to go through a 1/4 inch, actually. So that's awesome. That is awesome. Because these are 2 squares glued on top of each other, but the square on the bottom actually has a hole cut out. So this is just you know, right here is just a 1/4 inch. So good on me. Let's see which screw here I can get to fit. Let's see, which one looks nice. And these screws are awfully shiny, so we're gonna do something about that as well. That looks pretty good. He's a little short though. I'm gonna step him up. I'm gonna step him up. Maybe something like this. Because I forgot to account for the thickness of our thing here, of our switch, our knife switch. So I think I'm just gonna go with this kind of long guy right here. And same thing, he might be, ooh, that one's nice. I like that one. Let's do this. Let's get this guy in. Now I'm going to push him over here and give you guys a better view of me flailing around, trying to get this thing through the hole. And I might actually have to tighten up these, not tighten them up, but widen them. Yeah, a Frozen Mustache is like right on the money. He says that I can age these little hex bolt heads the same way I did the rivets. So that's a good idea. Before I put them on, I'm going to sand them. Let's sand their heads. But all I'm doing here is just kind of pre-threading these holes. So that way I don't have to handle the heads with a lot of force later and then mar our nice little paint job. And this one right here, I think I got too much paint inside this hole. Let's see if I can thread through the paint gloop. Pushing it through. There we go. So now that we know we can get these through, let's at least get them sanded. All right, these don't sand all that well, but because it's hard to get all up in here. But it's not bad. We just need to dull it enough. And what I can do is add some actual paint. Just a little bit of a dab gives something the acrylic wash can hang on to. And then it'll look really good. This can't sound good. Nails on chalkboard. Much. All right, so it still looks a little shiny, but I did knock some of it off, so that's a start. If I do this, there we go. That was it. So this is going to be the on-off for our fog machine. Let me get this in there. And I'll do the same with this. I'm going to acrylic wash it once we're done and let it sit upright. And that's going to give us a more realistic effect. Now I'm just going to do this and maybe give you guys this view right here. As here's our little screw heads right there. And I'm going to try and find a washer and a nut for them. So I'm just kind of like hiding back here for a second. Pay no attention to the woman behind the curtain. Nothing to see here. All right, so it's these two nuts there. And let me find inside my little washer kit right here, the appropriately sized washer for this. Let me see. Oh, I just gooped myself in paint. There. I got gold and silver hands. You know, you would think I'm rich. It's like, oh, she's all gold and silver, handing it out. There we go. And again, I'm going to, for now, hand tighten all this stuff just in case I have to, you know, pull it out for any reason. Oh, it's shaking around. Because of the border we have, that metal border, it's not quite so stable. I'm using my head a little bit to hold it. Didn't catch. Didn't quite catch. And I know why. I have some wood, like some wood splinters coming out. More sanding sounds for your audio pleasure. There we go. That should be enough to just kind of hold it in place while we continue on. So that is looking legit, people. Or there you are. It's looking legit, people. So let's take a look here. I'm going to push it towards you guys and look at that. Now, the only thing that doesn't look too legit is these very, very shiny heads. But we're going to deal with them at the very, very end. But other than that, look at our little switch. Looks pretty aged right there. And our on and off, which is not upside down. That's a huge feat for me. And so it's doing well. And Dave Beck, the diva of ooze, indeed. Oh, yes. So we have our switches in place. And guys, now it is time for, I'm backing us up for this, for the main act of this control panel, and that is our bubbler, which is being mounted here where you guys can't see. So I'm going to move myself right here, and I had kind of marked where the holes are, and I think at this point I'm going to remove some of the tape for this. Let's see here. Let me mock it up. Let me grab our little bubbler here, and we have him it's gonna sit like that. See how he kind of goes over the tape? I think I'm gonna remove the tape in that section. And let me give you guys a much better view here of what I did. I'm gonna come close. So we put this together, you know, and I think it ended up turning out really well. We came up with this idea all together, and we used coffee grounds to create that kind of like burnt effect around the insulation. And the idea was to kind of create a nice, you know, a nice way to hide the fact that this is like clearly a water bottle. So we started with PVC piping, or not PVC piping, but PVC trim that we had left over from our frame, started bending it. And lo and behold, it kind of started looking like insulators. And that's where Dave had the idea, like, heck, let's just like run with this insulator idea. And so that's where we added the burn marks and some of the aging. And then I had this piece of 1/4-inch copper pipe, and I started to bend it. Like I wanted to do like a cool, like around, and you know, then it feeds here. And what this is secretly is an air escape. And you know, I have it capped off for now because it's full of cat litter. And I'll get to that in a bit. So I managed to bend this by wrapping it around a piece of 3-inch PVC pipe. And that's why it looks so even. You know, I didn't do this freehand. I had a little bit of help. So it definitely helps to find something that is shaped similar to the shape you want to achieve. You know, so the 3-inch pipe was definitely a help. And then I carefully bent it. Now, my first attempt at this didn't go so well. So I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to own what I did. And so let's check that out. So if you look at this first attempt, I did not use a piece of 3-inch PVC. So look at how gnarly the windings are. And then after that, I tried to, I used pliers and stuff, and I tried to bend it into like 90 degrees. And that's where both Dave, Gel, and I think Merlin maybe had the idea of like, hey, do you have any sand? Because there's nothing preventing the kinking. And normally working with piping, there are special tube benders like for brake lines that you can use that prevent this kind of kinking. But most of us, like me, don't have this stuff at home. And so their idea was to use sand. And sand provides like, you know, inside stiffness, so that way you can't kink the ends like I did. So I went like crazy trying to get these 90-degree bends, and it didn't work so well. So I'm going to save this because a lot of the tube is not kinked. We can definitely use it for something. You know, this area, you know, maybe I can take short segments of it and maybe salvage it. But this is still really good. So I'm going to keep this and kind of churn my head, you know, around it a little bit. And here we have our spigot, you know, or coupling that we're going to hook up our tube. And the tube is going to go from here to the back of the window. That's going to feed our mini vape pen because its reservoir is like this big. And if that thing runs dry, then our coils are going to burn. And so I don't want to constantly be replacing coils. Like what if I, you know, get a phone call and I'm on the phone for a while and the fog juice was low and then, oh, burn coils. So this was our idea to have a reservoir. The original idea was to kind of like hide a mini water bottle back there. But you guys always have better ideas, and we ended up creating an entire bubbler tube, which is cool because Mad Scientist Lab cannot go without one of these. So the panel is going to be mounted slightly higher than the window, and so this is going to allow it to be fed through gravity to our mini vape pen reservoir. That little mini reservoir, this is of course being the bigger reservoir. So how do we get the bubbles in here? And that's where we have this tube. I'm going to pull it out from back here without making a mess or knocking down those thumbtack stems. So we came up with this a big old tube, and so our air pump is going to feed air inside this tube, and we took a nail and put a whole bunch of nail holes on the tube, and so theoretically the bubbles should, you know, float up. And it's cool because it adds another copper pipe element to this copper pipe element. And we have a lot of golds, bronzes, and we took our iron pipe and then aged that. So that's looking like all nice and rusty. So that's all awesome. And then as air pressure builds up in here, the air, once I empty it from its kitty litter, the air can escape down this tube. And there's other like air pockets, you know, where it can escape. But the idea is if you're pumping air anywhere, you probably need just like a hole or something that allows it to escape. So let's put this guy in here because we need to somehow feed this tube behind the panel. And I have an idea for that. And I got way too much tubing. We got to get rid of some of this tube, but let's get it fed and then figure out kind of where the pump will sit, and then I can cut it off. So I made this so we can just unscrew it like that. So it'll be hanging here. Anytime I need to refill it, you know, and pretend this is upright, I can just take this and pull it out, and this will be anchored here, which is one of the reasons I didn't put like a bottom one, because then it's anchored. Like, how are you gonna twist and pull it out? So we'd have to constantly be removing these joints, and that's kind of annoying. So round one, I'm gonna attempt to fill this with not all the way fog juice, but maybe kind of half to 3/4, so it's not so heavy, and completely rely on the twisting of it to hold it up. I'm hoping that's not too heavy. If it starts to become a problem, then yes, I'll put some kind of like support down here to hold it. And we need to figure out a way to attach our bottom burnt insulator to the bottom of the bottle. And for that, I have some Velcro, because I think we can just, it's so light. I mean, it weighs nothing. We can Velcro it on, and our little spigot, you know, comes out here, our little coupling, where we can connect the tube. So in essence, I can just take this whole thing, twist it on and off to be able to refill it, or because this is connected via Velcro and it's got a nice size hole, I can, you know, unvelcro it, let it slide down the hose, you know, there's gonna be a hose here, and refill it that way, and then re-velcro it. So there's a couple options, you know, that I kind of thought of. But let's get our bubbler tube in here, and it goes in this way. And it's literally the size of the opening. So like you guys said, we gotta twist it in. Gotta twist it in. There we go. And I'm gonna try and sit it right on top of the spigot that's in there. And that kind of helps anchor it into place, so it doesn't move. And now, oh, it won't stand up because it's like standing on this thing. I keep like, why won't it stand? So I'm gonna stand up for this a little bit and like hunch myself over so I can see y'all. And I think the best way is, see, there's a hole up in there. And so I'm gonna try and get this up and over the hole. Where's the end of it? Right here. So let's see if we can feed it. I'm feeding it the wrong way. It's gotta go this way. Feed it easily without having to take it apart, which I don't know about that. Maybe I should have put like a wire hanger. And V for the Ventum a friend. No, V for Ventum the friend is here. Hello. Why, hello to you too. I like the multiple O's in your hello. All right, so I see it. I can't believe I managed to do that without needing some kind of wire assistance or fishing line. There it is. Pulling it out the bottom. Oh, it's slipping. Oh, I know. Let me grab a, let's see, what do I got going on here? A needle nose, and see if I can grab it out. There. Now, this is like ridiculously, stupidly long, but we're gonna work with it. It's all tangled. Uh-oh. What is going on here? See, I probably have to twist it. I'm gonna put the bottle with my knees. There. I'm not too worried about this knot because it's gonna get cut off anyways. Just need to unknot it enough to get it through the hole. There we go. Now let me just reseat everything, kind of put him on top of the little coupler. Awkward much? There. And I'm gonna stand this up because there we go. It's gonna make my life a ton easier. Uh-oh. Finger is stuck. There we go. Okay, that wasn't awkward at all. But once it's in, theoretically, I should be able to just screw it and unscrew it. Just like that. Now, this is going to look awesome, I think, once it's bubbling up inside. And if you look inside the insulator, you can see all those little LEDs that I have. I have a ring of LEDs that we can change the color of it from time to time. The original idea was to use food coloring, and we were going to vote and pick a color and do food coloring, and then we can like change out the food coloring from time to time. But the problem with food coloring, it's also a good thing too, depending on what effect you want, is over time, the food coloring will start to stain the edge of the bottle. And so if you want to ever change colors, you always kind of have that hint of green, say, if you went with the green. So instead, we're going to use LEDs to color the fog juice instead. But the food coloring is kind of cool because when you do change colors, you always have that, especially green gives you like a grimy effect. So if you're looking for like a really grunge grime look, then food coloring definitely gives you that. It's also a great way to somewhat colorize the bottle. So you can leave water with food coloring over a certain amount of time, pour it out, kind of check it from time to time until the sides are kind of stained the way you want, and then you can add regular water and have that color. So there's a lot of ways to achieve color, but because we had done so much LED wiring, I figured, you know, what's a little bit more wiring, right? You know? So this wire is going to connect via a cool like corrugated plastic covering to our window, and it's going to feed, or the window is actually going to feed the rest of these LEDs. That little green wire is the signal wire that's going to come from the end of the LED set already in the window to here to help, you know, continue colorizing. And then here I also have power and ground, because we're going to feed power from the head end and the tail end of the LED so we don't get any voltage drop. So you can probably already see the problem here, and I'm going to give you guys a much better view of the problem. In fact, let me move myself. So now we got a tube here, this tube situation, and I want to get this to the back side. So what I'm going to do is, because we have a nice 3/4 inch hole here, I'm going to drill a hole right in the middle. And that should allow us to pull this tube through, and then we can cut the excess. So in true Rachel fashion, I think I'm just going to eyeball it right there. So let me grab my drill, and we have V for Ventum the friend is saying, hi, I'm studying electromechanical engineering, just first year though, nice to meet you. What is this project about? I've been watching for the past 6 minutes or so. Well, there's a lot to catch up on, so I'm gonna bring you up to speed while we drill. And a nice workshop, by the way. Well, thank you. It's, you know, a lot of this stuff is hidden, you know, but the next stream, I'm gonna have no choice but to show much more of the shop, because I'm going to be hanging the window, and the camera angle is going to catch much more. So not much I can do about the mess that you guys are all going to see. But I am glad you like this shop. This is just my home garage, so I share it with my personal life stuff as well. You know how that is. So let me grab, let's see, what is a good size for something, for the little holes? Let's find a good size for the little holes. Maybe something like this. Yep. That's a good size. I'm gonna go with it. Let's go with that. And I'll get into what this project is, because it's a rather large project. The biggest part of this project and the main part of this build is not even in this stream. It's actually like behind you. It's sitting behind you. But let me make some noise and get these drilled, and I will continue explaining what the heck this is. It's pretty cool if I say so myself. It's your guys' idea, because I build what you guys want. So here we go. Noise. And I totally forgot that we have that board underneath. I was like, wow, 1/4 inch should be going in like way faster, 1/4 inch plywood. But no, we have that common board. Now, because this is totally going to be covered by our iron flange, I am not too worried about some splinters like that. It's going to be covered anyways. No one will see it. And I'm going to switch to a much larger bit for in here, a little drill bit. So what this project is we started out building a lightning detector. We're going to build a pocket lightning detector. Well, you guys thought that was like hella lame, you know, because the LCD screen we were going to use for it is like this little. Because it's a pocket detector, people, come on. So the more we started talking about the things we love, like monster movies and things like that, the more this thing started to evolve. And more on that in a bit. Let me just get this hole drilled out. It's about center, right? We're just going to go for it. And I think I'm going to go a little bit bigger on the drill bit. Ooh, wrong way. Just to account for the wood splinters. And then I'll continue on with this project. I promise. Explaining it. There we go. I'm like secretly trying to get this drill on down here. Like, well, nothing to see. All right. All right, let me get this out of the way before it becomes in the way. All right, so as we started building our lightning detector, this shop has no windows. I have a garage door, and so we decided, man, wouldn't it be cool to like have a different way to display this lightning? Is there a way that maybe we can have a real lightning bolt in a window? You know, so then the original idea was, let's build a faux cathedral window. And for pictures of it, you can hit any one of my socials and you'll see kind of where we are with the project. We made a faux cathedral window with stone finish. You know, we try to make it look as legit as possible. We painted a Bob Ross inspired night evening sky, which I had never done before, so that was pretty cool. And then instead of painting a lightning scene or cutting out a lightning, we decided to build Young Frankenstein's castle. So if you ever watch the Frankenstein movies, we decided to replicate the castle as a foam miniature. So I got me some dollar store foam core, and that's exactly what we did. You know what? I don't have any bolts here that fit. So there's definitely pictures of it on, you know, any one of my social media pages. So you'll see that window. We did all kinds of LED lighting. I carved a lightning bolt through 1/4 inch plywood with a Dremel that lights up. So all this is connected to a real deal lightning detector that lights up different lighting schemes within our faux cathedral window. And this control panel to power the whole thing is actually, it's kind of an afterthought, really. The original intention was to have everything housed behind the window. I even made like a nice more than an inch kind of gap in the back to be able to house all the electronics. But as we started adding like bubblers and fog machines and things like that, I'm like, man, we kind of need a control panel to hide all this stuff. And any mad scientist laboratory where you kind of need like a knife switches and you need just like bubblers and Tesla coils and things like that. So this is like, I consider phase 1 of this build. And so everything lights up depending on how far the lightning is. And eventually you'll see that we have just some empty space here. And we're going to start adding temperature gauges, pressure gauges. It's going to turn into a whole weather station. Mad scientist, Frankenstein, steampunk, inspired. So even if you're not into Frankenstein and you're into steampunk or old stuff, this build is for you. So that's kind of like what we're doing. And so don't miss Monday. This coming Monday, we're going to debut the whole project with all of the LEDs and stuff working. And we're going to test it out with our lightning detector to see. Now, of course, if we don't have a storm or any lightning, well, then, we won't for real be able to test it out. But we can at least go through all the lighting schemes to see how they look, any improvements. And all of these builds, as I build, I take your suggestions and try and implement them as much as possible. That's why we ended up with this and not some lame lightning pocket detector. Not that they're lame, because listen, this isn't very convenient to be running around with trying to detect lightning. In fact, you might die, because you're running around with like metal. But at least most of it is faux metal, so maybe you won't die, get hit by lightning and stuff. So you would need some kind of backpack contraption to carry the control panel and the window. And that is not right. Washer's on the wrong side. There. And I'm sure we can age these the same way. So actually, before I do that, let me not get ahead of myself. I'm gonna make some nails on chalkboard sounds. Frozen mustache, you caught it. Don't forget to tape off the corner. Thank God. I was about to bolt this thing down and then be like, oh. He knows, or she. Never know with the username. So, oh yeah, you know I was about to bolt that down. You've been watching a couple times. You know how this goes down. I tell myself, now I gotta remember not to do this. And what's the first thing I do? Do exactly what I told myself not to do. So that's why I have you guys. You guys remind me of this stuff. All right, so I got 3 down and I need 1 more. That looks pretty good. And you can see how we aged up here. Oh, I can't pull that out very much anymore. But you can see that I have the same, or similar hex bolts on this side. And we aged them with paint. We didn't do kind of like the acrylic wash. So I might actually do the same thing just to, match it all up. Oh, the tape. All right. Frozen mustache. He says he is he. All right. Let's at least get it off this corner before I completely forget. And then it'll be hidden underneath this thing and it'll be tough to get out. There. And then I have a tiny bit right here that perhaps only I can see. I'm going to use this craft knife to dig it out. So we figured this control panel will allow us to kind of do like a phase 2. This is phase 1 of the project. So we're going to start another project after Monday, which is a cool barbecue caddy build. And I'm sure with your guys' help, we're going to find ways to make it like not just your average barbecue caddy. We're going to make it like our style, which is going to like rock, because everything we do rocks. And because many minds are better than one mind. So we get really cool ideas. And sometimes the ideas don't work out so well, but then they inspire other ideas. All right, and again, I think I'm going to hand tighten this guy just in case he needs to come back off again. Oh, the others went in so easily. This guy's fighting me. Oh yeah? I'm gonna fight back. Oh, it's a machine. It's a machine screw. Many threads. All like tightly wound. There we go. And because the heads on these are so much bigger, they don't really need a washer on the top side. They just need a washer on the bottom side. Unlike here. Ooh, this one's kind of, I don't know how I'm going to quite tighten this one. I mean, I suppose I can just twist this off and take this off, but I'm going to try and do it without that. I'm going to make things like super tough on myself. Just 'cause. Do I have one of those elbow? Oh, now he's going in. There. Those like little knobbies, for wrenches and things. So I think we can kind of start taking this off. Nice sharp line, guys. Yeah. I was going to try and freehand it, but you guys know better. You're like, Rachel, put some tape on that thing, all right? It's like, here this chick trying to freehand stuff again, and then you know what comes. Oops, guys. Uh-oh. It's like a soundtrack. You guys know how that goes. So, let's see. We got a couple. And let me get this where you guys can see. Wouldn't that be nice, right? And I taped so tightly towards the edges that it's got a nice clean cut. Good call about the tape. I was totally going to forget. Which exposes our edges for coffee grounds. Oh, yeah. So, again, some of you wanted coffee grounds just to kind of gum up the edges. So it's up to you guys if you want to proceed after seeing kind of the way it looks. If you want to coffee ground it up. I think Dave, and I can't remember if Frozen Mustache wanted coffee grounds. I know one of you guys, in addition to Dave, wanted it. But I can't remember if it was him or maybe Kareth. So I'm just pulling up some of this tape that is intricately taped to the edge here. It's like I am one with the control panel. It's like, I love your control panel so much. I want to marry it. I don't know if you guys used to use that diss when you were little. Well, if you love it so much, why don't you marry it? It's like, oh, I love this movie. Why don't you marry it? I don't know what your middle school disses were, but that was one of ours. Because at that time, ew, boys or ew, girls. They're weird. There we go. I had to concentrate there for a sec. I had to be quiet and concentrate on the tape. Oh, and here's a little bit more. It's like if you guys have ever done work on cars, it's like after you finish masking a car and the tape job or the paint job is done, it's like finding all the little hidden crevices with the tape. And now I have even more hidden tape. Ooh, this is a little heavier than anticipated. So perhaps Dave is right. With by the time we fill this with our fog juice, probably not a good idea to use my wimpy wall hanging method that I was talking about earlier. I think I'm gonna, do some legit screws and picture hanging wire. I still have the 100-pounder wire left over. Dave Beck, cooties! That is so true. I don't even know what the heck a real cootie is. Is it some kind of like insect-looking thing, like an amoeba? Like, what would a cootie even look like? But yes, that was a very good diss in middle school. Is if he or she has cooties, you would just go home just completely wrecked. Just being accused of having cooties. It was just terrible in those days. And today, it's like when you're an adult, it's like, I'd be accused of having cooties any day. I can take that. I can take that diss, And I want to give you guys my messy shop view. Pay no attention to what's going on over there. But you're going to see plenty of that on Monday. And let's see. All I'm doing here is just hand tightening, just to kind of get things somewhat into position. There's one. And let me bring the others to the forefront. And this will allow us to at least trim some of this crazy air hose situation that we got going on. It's like all up on the floor here. It's like, finally, I am complaining about too much hose. No one complains about having too much hose. But I'm complaining about having too much hose. Boom, boom. We need Kevin McSweeney for that. He gives me my drum anytime I make the superest corny pun or joke. Am I missing a washer? I am. There it is. The last time I lost that locking washer to our switch, and man, did I look for it everywhere. And Dave Beck was like, it's on the switch. And I was like, oh, so embarrassing. Or not, I really don't care. I love you guys when you guys help out. It's awesome. Anymore, if I lose my glasses, the first place I look, I'm like this. Because it'd be up on my head already. So there we go. I think we got all the tape off, and you can see that I, colored the sides as well. So this is looking pretty good, guys. And then we'll have, for here, the bottom. Let's see, I got all my goodies down here. But for the bottom, I'll just turn this guy around. A little spigot. I have this harder hose. So that way I'm sure that it doesn't kink when we get it up on the wall. So that fits perfectly right there, and that's gonna go towards the window, and then the wiring that's hidden up here along with this hose that's gonna come out the hole here, we're gonna cover it with a cool cable management. Now this is the bigger version of it. I'll kind of give you guys a better view. So this is like way too monstrously big. I thought that this would be very cool to run power from the control panel to the window, because it looks like chunky, one of those big main, wire power conduits in any building, the big ones, that they're powering some serious stuff. So I figured using this, probably coming out like the, let me move myself, coming out the side here, and then this is gonna go towards the window, which is gonna be to the right. That way the bubbler is the closest to the window. And then, so that'll go across like that. So at some point, I am going to have to drill some kind of hole here, just enough to kind of fit this in and just hold it in place. Because I want to be able to just remove it and then look at the wires inside in case there's some kind of thing that came disconnected or anything. So it's kind of nice that it has this slit. Now, I'm not thrilled about the color. The color is almost there, but we're going to use the exact same techniques, or, I'm going to use later today. I'm going to give you guys a break. I'm going to keep going. Or there you are. I'm going to keep going. And that way you guys can have a break, and I'll keep turning on this in order to, get it all painted up. But we're going to put a smaller one of that very same thing here. So it's not this big old chunky thing coming out. And I think finally, all we have to do is, I'm going to go ahead and paint these up similar to what I did here real quick. And let's get this guy on. So you see that I have the LEDs there. I have it tacked down with some hot glue right there. So that way it doesn't pull on the connection that I so carefully soldered. And these wires are going to connect to the remaining strip in the window. Then I have extra power and ground to give it, extra power from the other side that'll feed the rest of the strip. So we're covered from both ends. I, of course, have to splice in some longer wires. That's all that was left over from the very end. So this will all fit along with our tube in that smaller corrugated, cover. And this too will go to the window. And so this guy, he's going to go down here. He's going to look like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get some Velcro up in here. Up in here. Up in here. Where did my Velcro go? Right here. So this is industrial strength, Velcro. So let's try it out. And luckily this is just PVC, so it shouldn't be all that heavy. Famous last words. You know how that goes. All right. I don't know. So I'm going to start by, because we're not going to use this whole thing. That's kind of crazy. So I'm going to put them together. We're going to cut this down. And let's see how big we need this. I want to put something kind of here. I prefer not to rest it on top of the wires. So I think I'm going to go right there with it. And so it's about, where's my scissors at? My scissors. About this size. Yeah, so V for Ventum the Friend. The more people we have on these streams, the better, because you guys will get me out of certain pickles. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I get myself into pickles. So I think what I'm gonna do is get this. Oh, that glues down like serious. That's industrial. Okay, I get it. I get it now. I was thinking that it might be industrial, just the word, but not in the action. So what I'm trying to do now is peel the backing cover, which is the worst, probably the toughest part of this whole build, is getting these little adhesive covers off. So I'm going to, probably should have done this before I stuck it in here. Because now, actually, I'm just going to do that. That is industrial. I am not going to lie. That is, all right. All right, it earned its name. Some things I kind of like, you read on the packaging and then I get a little side eye. But nope, I'm going to retract my side eye. So I'm going to take it the other way like that. So I'm retracting the side eye. 'Cause it earned its reputation. It is so industrial. I can't get the backing sticker off of it. Ugh. Don't make me threaten you. And the backing sticker is like, threaten me? Like with what? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You know what? I bet you it's easier to take the sticker off the other piece. Oh, guys. Yes, I got it. I got it. All right. Now I'm gonna carefully stick it back. Oh, so carefully. There. And I put the Velcro there too, so that way it's away from the connections that I got going on here. And what I like about this Velcro is that it's very squishy, meaning thick, you know, so it's got a lot of padding. So that way the bottle is not going to keep crushing these wires right here. So the moment of where do we want this burned? Do we want it kind of like off to the side like that? Do we want it facing completely forward or like this? Because that's the way it's going to go on. Let me maybe do this so we can all see the look of it. There. Keep moving it. Keep moving it. There we go. So we can have it like this. Let me move it up a little bit. A little bit. I don't think it should be center. It probably should be a little bit like off to the side. Maybe facing the window a little bit like that. I think I'm going to go for it. Yeah, let's go for it. All right, I'm going to just kind of sneak a peek here to make sure that the little coupler is going to be lined up with the hole. And let me move some of these wires out of the way so the coupler can attach the tube first. Wait, okay. Attach the tube first. Darn, yeah. Probably should do that. That might be easier. I don't know how much tube. The reason I didn't attach it first is because I have quite a bit and I don't know how much I'm going to need. But you know what? We'll go with this big old length and then we'll just cut it off later. So yes, stick the tube in the hole. It's definitely reachable. Like you can see where it goes in. So it wouldn't have been a crisis, but this is definitely easier. So yeah, I got the tube here. And I'm going to attach it to our little coupling here. I'm standing up for this. And let me just move this up and down out of the way. So I have maximum force. Stay there. And I'm just going to move this a little bit so this guy can have a place to rest. And I'm going to try and shove this as much as possible. And it's a tight fit. I am not really worrying about leaks with this particular one. I always worry about leaks with these more like flimsy, flabby ones. So I like to just do a little bit of hot glue for projects. But this one, I am not so worried. So let me see. There we go. Just making sure my wiring isn't ending up. There we go. Oh, I said I wanted it this way. Yeah, that's right. Because we got some nice effects going on here. And this is like too forward, like too expected. You know, give it a little bit of unexpected. So I'm just gonna, I'm feeling with my fingers to get it like, guys, I think this Velcro idea is gonna work. Because if I ever have to fix the LEDs, I want a way to just be able to pull off this insulation part. And it's so light that, yeah, I think it's gonna hold with our industrial that I had previously given it some side eye, but now, you know, which was quickly retracted upon using it. So that's pretty good, guys. And eventually I am going to remove this red, but if I do, cat litter is going to start pouring out of it. So I am going to do that outside, you know, and that's why I left the bolts up here kind of hand tightened so I can do that rather easily. And then Dave Beck says, this way the insulator will be centered. Yes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. It was better centered that way. That way I'm not like guessing, you know, where it's going to go. So guys, we got our control panel on. We have our bubbler tube on, and it is like hooked up and ready to go. So really, I'm going to carefully do this. I don't want to rest it on these wires, so I'm going to hold it kind of like sideways like this and just kind of peep on from behind it. But this is looking pretty, pretty real with just some basic paints and techniques. And we're all, just kind of learning along the way. And you guys have had some really great suggestions to make this super real. And bending this around a 3-inch PVC gave me those really nice, even, important word there is even spirals, and then filling it with sand, or in my case, cat litter, because it's what I had lying around, allowed me to do these curves. Now, even with cat litter, maybe a little bit different with sand, I don't think I would have been able to get sharp 90-degree bends without kinking it. So I kind of went for a little just smoother, bend there, but it still looks pretty good. And this will let our air escape as it builds up, and it'll, escape through here. Obviously, it can also escape. The main escape really is going to be this copper tube. It doesn't sit quite tightly in the lid. There's a lot of air. You saw that it was like flopping around. So the air can go up around here and into the back of the panel and just like out the wall or something like that. And we're not pumping like huge amounts of air. This is just like a bubbler. So we don't have to worry about like air coming out all over the place. And we have an obvious kind of empty space. And what we're going to do with that is, save it for different gauges as we add to our weather center. So, oh, guys, I almost forgot. And I know we're kind of like running over here, but I'd like to sneak this in real quick. I'm going to trim all these hoses, as well. But while we have everything, you guys want to add the coffee ground stains, or do you like the way it looks just like this? I can hold off on the coffee grounds and do it if I hear, if you guys don't want to decide right this second. We can always add it later. But I don't know, like it like this, or do you want a little, credification on the sides there? So let me know as we wrap up here, and I shall do thy bidding. But I wanted to thank you guys for joining all the Wrench Army members. It's because of you, that we do these very cool things, and we have all these amazing materials. And hopefully, these projects are going to start getting more and more interesting because it is your input. So don't forget to get on Discord and throw out your ideas. Like if you really want to see something, just, pitch the idea out on Discord. And I try and do as many of them as I can. Sometimes we can combine them into one giant, monstrosity, which is kind of like what happened here. Because separately you wanted more bad scientist things like bubbler tubes and things like that, and we ended up being able to combine it into one project. So we have a very exciting barbecue project starting after next week, and for the first time, Wrench Army members get their own exclusive projects. Up until now, I've been reserving certain parts of the build just for you guys and for us to decide upon certain things, but now you will get your very own build, and we are going to start by building our own plasma ball. So we are going to be using an incandescent light bulb, and I'm going to try and find the biggest one, and we're going to be converting it into a light bulb and then deciding together how we're going to display it. This could be a staff, a wizard wand with a plasma ball on top. It can be a wall display something, a giant candelabra. Heck, I don't know. You guys are going to decide all this. So as always, join me Mondays. This is our free stream for everybody. Wednesdays are Wrench Army. And once again, thank you guys for all of your support. And let me know about the coffee grounds. So Frozen Mustache says coffee grounds. So all right, I'm going to coffee ground this up, and it's going to be done in exact same manner as we did here. Little Mod Podge. Sprinkle, sprinkle, little Mod Podge. But first, I'm going to give this a whole other ink wash, and then we'll coffee it up. All right, guys, so I will see you next week. This is super exciting. We are in the home stretch. Bye.